Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another video. If you are an avid watcher of my videos, you know that we have a segment called Anti-Metapod, where we look at non-meta decks going against meta decks and have some success with it. But today we are actually going to talk about the meta, and not because we want to play it. We're talking about it because we want to counter it. And the reason why I want to talk about this deck in particular is because it's kind of a concern that in the Philippines, the last tournament that was held, called the Ultra Ball League, some 70 to 80% of players are using the same combination, the Draga EX, Iron Thorns EX. I hope there is some variations there at least. They did not just go to Limitless and copy every single thing that is in there. But 70 to 80%, that means 4 out of 5 of your matches you'll be facing the same deck. Now that is a good thing if the deck that you're using is something that counters that specifically. But for the game itself, for the Pokemon TCG competitive scene, I don't think that is healthy. And I get it, some people are just copycats. Not that it's a bad thing. Some people, they just don't want to think in terms of building a deck. They just want to go ahead and use something that is perceived to be dominant and then take it to the next level. Some people are like that. So what we're trying to do is kind of reduce the dominance that this combo is doing by understanding how it works, how competitive players use it, and maybe eventually learn how to counter it. Or just not be surprised if ever you get to face it in one of your competitive tournaments. But anyway, before we get into that, let me just take this moment to ask you, if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please do. Would highly appreciate that. And if you do like this video, at the end of it, please hit that like button. And also, at the end of this video, I am going to announce who the winner is in the current raffle that we have. Alright, now that we got that out of the way, let's get into it. Alright, let's look at the list first so that we can grasp what this deck is truly capable of. I got this one out of Limitless, but I can say that the list resembles a lot of the matches that I've went against. A lot of the difference would be the ace spec. This one is using Precious Trolley, but I've seen someone use Prime Catcher. I've seen someone use what do you call this one? The Unfair Stamp. And also, a lot of them uses Toad Scroll in order to prevent opponents from using Night Stretcher. Right? Since Night Stretcher is kind of OP, this one prevents that, the Slime Mold Colony. But yeah, that is the usual difference. But in terms of the overall idea of the deck, it's pretty much similar. And so yeah, let's go ahead and look at it. So the star of this deck, I would say, is really Iron Thorns. Because with Iron Thorns, you basically cancel out the power of like a Zard deck, the Raging Bolt deck, and also one of the top metas, Regidrago. Before, I consider this one like a sleeper non-meta deck, but since in the Philippines we are at 70%, 80% usage rate, this I will now consider a meta. But yeah, this one has a devastating ability. I think a lot of us know this by now. If this is in the active spot, no Pokemon that has a rule box can use their ability. That includes you and your opponent. And that works in tandem with a Draga EX, because even though it is a Pokemon with a rule box, it doesn't have an ability. It has a really strong attack in Phantom Dive, 200 damage with some spread damage to boot. And if that's not enough, its stage 1 is also a draw engine with Recon Dive, and it also doesn't have a rule box, meaning even if Iron Thorns is in the active, you can use Recon Directive anytime. All that being said, the main idea of this deck is to disrupt the opponent in the beginning and do some heavy damage in the mid to late game. In my experience going against this deck, I could say for sure that they want to go first every time. And it makes sense because of course they want to take advantage of Iron Thorns EX's ability. And so if they go second, let's say, and Iron Thorns is not their active Pokemon, then the first turn, like for example, it's a Regidrago. or a Raging Bolt, Teal Mask Ogre Pawn will be able to set up in the first turn. It won't be a lot of setup, but it will be a significant advantage in some way, especially if they're able to use a Squawkabilly. But yeah, so they want to go first. So in case they get a Drippy in the active spot, what they'll do is look for an Iron Thorns right away, either via Nest Ball or Ultra Ball, and then put an energy on a Drippy and then retreat. So that Iron Thorns is the frontliner, thus preventing the opponent from setting up. And by the way, if you haven't seen it yet, let me point out it has 4 Iron Thorns EX in the deck, just to increase the chances that you have it in the active spot right away, and for good reason. The only way that I can think of to counter that one is if you have a Canceling Cologne on hand, or maybe search for it with Arvin in order to be able to set up at least. It's gonna be worth it when it comes to that, or use a boss order. But then again, that is a much tougher pill to swallow because it is a supporter at the end of the day, and it's a boss order, which normally you would need towards end game. And so, but if you want to be able to set up, and the opponent has a Drippy on its bench, that's the only way to go about it. So there's a way around it, but it's gonna be tough. Now, if you get through all that, the next thing that this deck is trying to do is to use TM Evolution to hasten the setup for Dragapult significantly. It makes sense because since Volt Cyclone needs 3 energies to use, you won't be able to use it right away, and so might as well put a attack that needs only 1 energy that also helps your team. Again, in my experience against this deck, all of them use TM Evo at least once, and it makes sense as well because they don't have a lot of balls. They only have 2 Ultra Balls. So not only does this allow you to save some space by reducing the number of Ultra Balls in your deck, it also hastens your setup by 1 turn, and so this is just very critical in this deck. And that's also the reason why they have 4 Arvins. If your deck already has a jamming tower, then it's good to be aware of this. At least now you can maybe prepare and try to get it as soon as possible so that you can disrupt them. Because again, this is very critical for them. They don't have a lot of balls. It would be really tough to get the Pokemons that they need by just drawing. And so if you prevent them from using Evolution, then it gives you significant advantage. Okay, that's all you need to know in the early parts of the game. Now we go to the mid parts of the game. This is where the 3 types of energy make sense. So 4 Psychic, 4 Fire, 3 Lightning. This is to allow Iron Thorns to attack with Lightning energy, and also Fire and Psychic for Dragapult to attack. So in the early stages, Volt Cyclone will be used to transfer some of the Psychic energy or Fire energy to a Dracloak or a Dragapult waiting on the bench. This is also why it has a lot of Crispin, 4 to be exact, in order to get the necessary energy that it doesn't have yet. And also to accelerate, since Crispin allows you to attach 2 energies in 1 turn. And then when Dragapult has enough energy, it will then look for a future booster energy capsule in order to retreat Iron Thorns and have Dragapult carry it from mid to late game. And then Radiant Alakazam is just to make the numbers match up perfectly for a KO. Another critical thing to note here is the Lost City. It has 2. So with Dragapult having the spread damage together with the nuke attack of 200 damage, it has the ability to knock out 2 Pokemons or even 3 Pokemons in 1 turn. And so that amplifies the use of Lost City. Now, if you ask me what is the most important card for him in the mid parts of the game, I would say it's the Future Booster Energy Capsule, because this one makes Iron Thorns free retreat, right, instead of 4 energies. And so, since it's only just one, if you're able to remove this one with a lost vacuum, this will be stuck in front. But then again, my main deck is Gardevoir. It has an ability to damage the bench with Scream Tail, and also I use Uxie deck and some mill decks. So for me, this is the most important. Now for meta decks or decks that are highly dependent on EX abilities, the play would depend on what you did during the early parts of the game. So if you were not able to set up during the early parts, then you have to try to maybe boss orders a Radiant Alakazam, since it has 2 retreat cost, in order for you to remove Iron Thorns in the picture. Or if they have a Toad Screwl in play, you can also boss order that one, because Toad Screwl has 2 retreat cost. Yeah, 2 retreat cost. And then from there, you can now use your basic EX ability, and so start setting up. If he uses Crispin on the next turn to desperately retreat a 2 retreat cost Pokemon, then just boss order the Dragapult the next in your next turn, so that you can do another setup and also do some damage on a Dragapult EX, especially if you're a Zard. Now, if you were able to set up during the early parts of the game, hard to do, but it does happen, then just go ahead and kill the Iron Thorns EX. Even better if it already has 2 energy attached to it. So in a way, that sets him back and you get 2 prize cards. If you're a Zard and you can attack but can't KO this one, it would be worth it to use a Dusclops skill on Iron Thorns EX so that you can kill it right away. Because this guy has a penny, so you might regret it if you do some damage on an Iron Thorns and he just pennies it. And then that basically gives him back all the energy and items or tools that is attached to it, right? So you may end up regretting that one. So against this one, I highly suggest that you do a 1-hit KO. I think we're all trying to do that anyway, so maybe I'm stating the obvious, but in this case, the importance is just heightened a little bit since he does have a penny, and we all know that, and if you don't, it would be costly. Now, in the end game, what I can say is that if you did not disrupt or delay him in the early to mid parts of the game, you're probably walking dead at this point, because that means Dragapult has already used a Phantom Dive. The usual scenario is he'll have 1 damage counter on a Pheasantipity or maybe a Teal Mask Ogerpon. That would make the Ogerpon or Pheasantipity 1-hit KO the next time he bosses orders them. With this deck having 3 bosses orders and 4 Pokegears, that means the boss orders is just around the corner. Also has 1 counter catcher if in case he is behind in price cards. You can easily get that with an Arven. Again, he has 4 of them. So in the end game, it's all about math. He's gonna try to move around damage counters in order to KO at least 2 on the next turn or the succeeding turns. Now, if you're a Zard, Regidrago, or Bolt deck user, and you were able to set up somewhat in the early to mid parts, and your bench is still clean, meaning no knick-knack damage from a Phantom Dive, then you have a very good chance, because even though Phantom Dive is a very strong attack, tactically, it can't 1-hit KO most of the meta EXs, or even go toe-to-toe in terms of nuke damage against meta EXs or VMAX in the case of Regidrago. And then if you're a mill deck or an Uxie deck, your best case is to remove Future Booster Energy Capsule in order to just let Iron Thorns be stuck in front. Keep using Volt Cyclone because it's the lesser of 2 evils. Instead of letting Dragapult kill you, your front Pokemon and some of your bench Pokemons with Phantom Dive. And there you have it. This deck is strong but not unbeatable. It is a disrupt deck first and foremost, and a tactical damage dealer towards the end. But if you were able to set up, you can win, because going toe-to-toe in terms of nuke damage, a lot of the meta EXs still outclass Dragapult in terms of damage output. And then if you disrupt it, it's pretty disruptable in my opinion. you will have a good chance as well, because it is a pretty slow deck, and there's a chance it won't be able to keep up if you disrupt it. Now, our raffle, we only have 4 people who got the answers right, and so 4 people will be included in the roulette. Whoever is chosen by the roulette will be the winners. Card ability, especially since we are rocking a one prizer type of DPS. Radiant Greninja, honestly, I haven't used this much, like the skill concealer. But I guess it's also like you'll see in the videos. All right, congratulations Jeremy, and congratulations Acid. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you on the next one.